Well, we're back. I do apologise, been away on holiday. I know I said I was going to do one of these videos every single day, but like I said, been away on holiday and I did need the holiday. Before we went away, we were discussing filters, and I said I was going to do small videos on each part of the filter so the videos weren't too long. So today we are going to discuss the biological side of your filter and something called the nitrogen cycle. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about filters. Doesn't matter whether you've got a small box filter, whether you've got a Nexus, whether you've got a drum filter, they all work in the same way, and that is to remove two types of waste from your pond, and that is mechanical waste and biological waste. Mechanical waste is the waste you can see, biological waste is the waste that you cannot. They may get there in slightly different ways, however, they all come to the same end, and that is to remove both of those two types of waste. We are going to be talking about bacteria, so I just want to say before we get into that, don't get confused when we're talking about bacteria. Within your pond there are two types of bacteria, anaerobic and aerobic. Aerobic are oxygen loving bacteria. Anaerobic are bacteria that live at seriously low levels of oxygen and flourish at that level. Today we are going to talk about the oxygen loving bacteria. Don't get the two confused. So we get into the filter. Water comes into your filter and enters into the mechanical side of your filter. That can be sponges, K1 plus, whatever it is you've got in your filter that removes the mechanical waste. That is the waste that we can see. It then goes into the biological side of your filter, and this is where the nitrogen cycle really begins, and it's in 3 steps using 2 different types of oxygen loving bacteria. So the first step is the nitrosomonas bacteria, which converts the ammonia into nitrite, step 1. Step 2 is the second type of bacteria, the nitrobacter, that then takes over and converts nitrite into nitrate, which is step 3. Now, when we're talking about this oxygen loving bacteria, you have to remember that these oxygen loving bacteria really do love oxygen. They need huge amounts of oxygen to actually convert and do the job that they do, but they also need huge amounts of oxygen to reproduce and basically colonate all the way through your filter. They need an oxygen rich environment. So then we get to nitrate. Nitrate is a very funny subject. If you look at any test kit and you look down the side, you will go down and down and down, and you will see skull and crossbones. One of the questions that I often get asked is nitrate poisonous to my fish? The very simple short answer is yes. However, nitrate is not considered highly toxic to your koi. Do not confuse that with it is not toxic to your koi, because it can be. There are lots of issues around the uptake of oxygen and many different things that we'll discuss on a completely different video. So just to make clear, is nitrate toxic to your koi? Yes, it is. However, at very normal and low levels, it's not going to do your fish any harm. Trust me, it's not considered highly toxic to your fish, but don't confuse that with it is not toxic, because it is. Just nowhere near as toxic as ammonia or nitrite. So you've converted that through to nitrate. It's a very simple system. Like I say, 3-stage system relying on 2 of the oxygen loving bacteria that live within your filter. Now, I don't normally promote individual products, etc., but we're going to use this one simply because it's one that everybody knows and everybody generally understands. The Nexus filter. The Nexus filter and primarily moving bed. Why is a moving bed the best form of biological filtration? Dead simple. We've just spoke about it. The good bacteria that you have within your filter system are oxygen loving bacteria. They need huge amounts of oxygen to do the job that they do, converting ammonia through to nitrite and nitrite through to nitrate, but they also need huge amounts of oxygen to reproduce themselves. So the environment within a moving bed is absolutely perfect for them. The other thing to consider is you are dealing with a live organism. The way this organism works is simply it thrives on fish waste, with exactly what we've just said. So if you think at different times a year you'll be feeding at different levels, your koi will be feeding at different levels and producing different amounts of waste. So at the times when your koi are not eating as much, there is less waste going through the filter, which means there's not enough to keep all the good bacteria going, so it will die back. And then at higher temperatures you'll be feeding more, the koi will produce more waste, so then that bacteria needs to multiply and colonate everywhere that it can. So by the use of a moving bed, the surface area is critical. The more surface area, the more good bacteria. But you have to remember at the times when you are dealing with low feeding levels, you are going to have on that media some dead colonies of bacteria. By the way a moving bed works, it smashes that media together and it knocks off any dead colonies of bacteria, leaving space then for new colonies to move in, reproduce and repopulate. Very simple. That's why a moving bed is considered within the industry probably just about as good as it gets for a biological filter. Well, that's it. Nice and simple. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again tomorrow.